Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we have ourselves a track by an axe named New Demons titled Secrets and Lies. And if we switch over to here we have ourselves a track on the screen. Now I've already reviewed New Demons should I say. I've reviewed their track Comatose, so I'm very excited, genuinely, by the way. I do like my metal, and this is Secrets and Lies, the new track. So we're going to listen through this song from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go. I love it. We're just straight into it. There's absolutely no filler. I mean, I will go back a little bit so we can appreciate the hook for what it is, the drop, should I say. The tightness of the guitars, the bass, the drums, the vocal range and the high register to sit on top of it all really nicely. The intricacy of some of those guitar riffs, how interesting the vocal melodies are, the variety there. It's just stunning. There's absolutely no filler, man. Normal time now. Back to that intro riff. I mean, it just opens. We have half of that intro riff there, which is an unpredictable thing, as initially we had two of it. So it's just the band, playing with the listener's expectations there, and I adore that, especially in a short form factor track like this. Smooth transitions, good. Breakdown time, baby. I mean, I just adore the fact that with that breakdown, we switch up the groove, the pace of it from what we had in the hook section. We slam it down. Massive low riffs, low down-tuned riffs on those 8 strings or 7 strings, man. The drums, we just have this kind of like big bass response, and then things just float. There's this constant, ooh, float. Ooh, float kind of thing going on there. The push and pull, man. There's such a careful attention to detail with every component within this track. I adore it, man. They clearly care about what they're doing. The songwriting's intense. And it's just like the little whispers in the sides. I know I'm pausing. It's just simply because there's so much cool stuff I want to point out. Just the whispers in the sides of the headphones, the wide parts of the stereo field, like the sound is surrounding you. It's crazy stuff, man. It's so cool. Back in the hook. Dude. Oh man. Wow, directed by Alex Zarek. Dude, I would love to be in a metal band. They got to the point where they could just make a kick-ass music video on top of like a parking lot or something like that, and it's just so awesome, dude. I used to look up to bands like these as a kid. It's not just the aesthetic, obviously, but like when I was growing up in the mid 2000s, there were bands they were making metal and doing all sorts of cool stuff, and I'm just so glad. I when I listen to this stuff, I feel so positive for the future of metal. Challenge me on that in the comments. Challenge me on that. Tell me that this isn't good. Like I'll fight. I'll fight you. Welcome to my conclusion of this track from New Demons, titled Secrets and Lies. What do I think this is about? Judging from a first listen perspective, or on a first listen basis, I would assume that this track is basically about dealing with someone's secrets and lies, the bullshit that they've had to cope with. It sounds like they've been having a terrible time. It's really been affecting them sort of psychologically. And you're basically trying to sort of give them a comeuppance, trying to communicate the damage that this person has done through this, Like I think one party literally addressing them, fuck your lies, etc., like something along those lines. You get the impression that clearly they're unhappy about this and they want things to be different. But also, given the way that we sung within this, I don't really think there's a clear solution to this. I don't get the indication that we necessarily find a happy way of ending this, that there's a positive outcome. I think that things don't necessarily improve. In fact, I would only assume that potentially they fester. There's also a constant mention of whispering in this, so I assume that maybe they've managed to actually cotton on by hearing them, that there's been some shenanigans going on. So I think the chorus is almost like a sense of defiance. I've been listening to you, you've been whispering, I've heard this, and I'm not happy about it, to put it lightly. And I think that this song is basically going through the process of coming to terms with the truth that they've uncovered. The vocal performance was great. I loved the head and chest voice. I think that having the guy in an air falsetto for a lot of the time was really great, because it just pitched really nicely on top of the rhythm guitars, the bass, the drums, and everything else going on. Even when we had the more sort of like sweeter steel string arpeggios later on in the track, or the rhythm clean parts, the vocals were still lovely and present, and actually we played into the mistiness of it by adding reverb and delay tails on it. There were like not only vocal takes in the center, but they also got panned to the sides with little whispery bits, like how I pointed out like later on in the track. And I also want to give a shout out to, I think, the bass player, who does a call and response, kind of growls, kind of screamy style, as like a vocal fry-ish thing, as a call and response to the main vocalist. I think that that's a tremendous way of not only showing band chemistry, but also switching up the delivery of these lines, like of a kind of a, like a more straightforward approach to it. This is actually how frustrated and angry this makes me feel. That kind of straightforward, and then the brutality there. I think that's a wonderful decision to make in regards to the performance, and it's good, especially when maybe, if you're a singer, you might be able to do the growly stuff, but if you got another member of the band who can do that stuff really well, use that. Let them go between. It's a great sort of, again, a great call and response. So I think that was fantastic. The vocals were stellar. I'm stoked with that. I think that finally the delivery of it, the way we sung, was really, there was a lot of variety to not just the way we sang and the various melodies and etc., aside from like the repeated sort of melodies and ideas within like the hook sections and stuff like that. But we also just had a lot of variety to the actual composition itself, so that led the vocals to kind of need to do a little bit of acrobatics along that. But I think, I could understand how the vocals were connected to the lyrics, and that just leaves the track at 3.5 minutes, everything else, And like, don't get me wrong, we were not sleeping on the accompaniment. At 3.5 minutes, we had so much stuff going on within this track, from the guitar, bass, and drum parts. So you might be thinking, okay, well, that's fairly minimalist. It's really not. That intro riff with the alternate picked parts, the chugging with the double kicks, and the tightness of everything involved in there. You really need to practice that to get it sounding that strong, and it just came in like a ton of bricks made of star matter. It was wonderful. I loved how tight it was, and I think that it was fantastic. The vocals come in a bit later on. I think after the heaviness of that intro, having the vocals in that higher range there just really balanced everything out. And we had a few, we had switches between like the various feels. So we had some double time bits, like normal time bits, bits where we went halftime there, and then the chorus obviously was anthemic with a bit more kind of like ambiguity to the verses because we were still elaborating on a situation there. And then we also obviously had like breakdown parts where there were just massive low notes just going down into those deep zeros, and just it was ferocious. There was space like a chasm had been opened up within the track, and we just slammed it out of the park there without any sort of like issues whatsoever. We had different aesthetics, oral aesthetics throughout the track that made it very interesting to listen to as a listener. There was very little of the same throughout. Granted, the vocalist had a sort of a range they were comfortable in, so you had that as a familiar thing, but it was also almost like a guide leading you through the mist. You know what I mean? And with the breakdown coming into like a part where like I lost track of the time signature in that last little interlude bit before the final chorus. I don't know what time signature that is. I've been doing drums for 20 years and I don't know what time signature that is, so I feel like a fraud now. But basically, that was a fantastic little way of shaking things up. The lack of having like a way of pinning down the amount of beats per bar or like a sort of an accent point, it really just puts you in a position where you're lost and you're sitting there kind of looking for a guide, and it's almost like you're the person that the singer is talking to, and then the whispery bits, and then you come back to a more familiar state, but of course that's the point where he's reiterating that he's been listening to you and all the whispering and stuff like that. And yeah, that's it. It's really clever. And I like the fact that even though, just before we move on to the studio production stuff, I like the fact that even though we could clearly play, and there was a phenomenal amount of different diversity with the various, drum grooves and tom fills and such, there was lots of range with the different guitar riffs, like with not only the palm muted kind of chuggy bits, but also the mid-range kind of string lead accents on the sides, and the bass guitarist is not only rolling with the root notes and the chord progressions, but also exploring the fretboard and really making the most of the opportunity to be this flexible with the band as talented as they are. It's that we didn't overplay. We didn't get to a point where we were thinking, okay, yeah, we really need to try and like kind of one up each other. It wasn't a dick measuring contest. It was just really stellar musicianship and chemistry within a band where they clearly know what they're doing. And because of the fact that they're team players, I think they've got a bright future ahead of them. I don't really have any issues with the way it was composed or written. I don't think having alternative lead parts would have made it better. I think having the different vocalists doing things that were pulled into their strengths was great, and I don't think there was a note out of place. I mean, finally, studio recording, the mixing and mastering was wonderful. I think that the vocals had a great clarity to them, whether they were the clean parts or like they were awash in the mist and reverbs and delays like later on, that kind of ambiguous time signature part, or the growled parts were nice and tight with the compression and filtering and stuff. The guitars were chonky and strong, but also elegant in the lead sections and in clean sort of effects dripped part, and then the bass and drums were nice and controlled down like low end with a bit of side chaining from those kicks and snare parts, but not too much as if to kind of make it sort of a little bit too kind of awkward or grotesque. Really, things came when they needed to. It was very full sounding, but there were also points where we took certain frequency spectrums away, like maybe there's less of the lows or less of the highs, etc. Well, no, the highs and mids were always there, but we did remove some of the lows occasionally. Things floated, like in the breakdown parts we had chug and then nothing, and I think that was clever. Constant toying with the listener's expectations, as I talked about before. There was dynamic range because of that as well. Things changed in perceived energy levels even within the space of a section, and that's awesome. And I think that with the leveling nailed, I think it's nice and wide in the stereo field, especially with a bit of automation with the vocals going on, with like the repeaters about the whispering part, with again, like the leveling being good, and it was nice and loud as well, so limiting compression was handled there. It was commercial grade. I just think that New Demons is a band that's going from strength to strength, and I wish them the best of luck in future, because this is my review of their track Secrets and Lies, and hopefully enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show them some love by their social medias and a YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as either help more than ever thought of great stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.